Welcome to the 3 over 2. I'm Joe Fortunato, and as always, I'm joined here with Chris Grieve. What's going on, Chris?
What's up, Joe? Doing pretty good today. How are you?
Good, man. I'm excited for this show. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to start the show off by going over some stuff we've seen between now and last Friday, and then we're going to go into a redraft of the 2018 draft. So what we're doing is we're just looking in hindsight and drafting what the teams should have taken.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for the redraft, and there was a lot of good NBA games this week. So we'll start off, of course, we normally start off with the Sixers, talking about how they played, because both of us being Sixers fans. And the main headline from the Sixers this week is Tyreese Maxey, back to back 30-point games. It looks like he could be the point guard of the future. Do you think he could be the point guard of the future for the Sixers?
I'd like to think so. A couple episodes ago, maybe 4 episodes ago at this point, we talked about our thoughts on Maxey, and I wasn't too high on him based on what I was seeing the last playoff run for Philly, his performance against Atlanta. I wasn't too impressed, but with him dropping 30 in back-to-back games, he's stepping up, showing that he could be one of the best scorers on the team.
I just love with Maxi his energy he brings every single game. He's fearless out on the court. Is always driving in, doing his floaters and taking it to the rim. That's my favorite part about Maxi, and I feel like he's improved his playmaking, which was my biggest thing with him. Is if he can improve playmaking and get other teammates involved, then he could be really good. And without Joel Embiid the last few games, I think the ball movements looked pretty good. And yeah, they're just playing better team basketball right now, even without Ben Simmons and now without Joel Embiid. And then also they were missing Tobias Harris for a point in time. But the Sixers are playing good team basketball and everyone's stepping up.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate we lost these last 2 games, but I think the guys are realizing, look, we don't have our anchor, we don't have Joel Embiid, so let's step up, let's move the ball, let's try and get everyone involved and see if someone can get a hot hand, and the hot hand went to Maxi.
Yeah, for sure there. So another big thing that's been going on in the last couple weeks of the NBA is the Warriors. They are one of the best teams in basketball right now, and Steph Curry's having an MVP season. And it kind of brings up the point. Do we think the Warriors are serious or not here?
I think they are. I think they're serious. They're 9-1 for a reason. They have if the season ended today, Steph would be the MVP, and I just think they're playing good basketball. They got guys like Wiggins stepping up. They're beating good teams, and they're just playing like the Warriors we were used to seeing. Obviously last year was a little bit of a different year for the Warriors team, but they're stepping up. Everyone's playing their role. They got guys taking leaps this year like Jordan Poole. I think they're an exciting team. I think they're going to go very far, and I think they're contenders.
I think I'm going to hold off on calling them a championship contender for now. I think that they're a very good team and fun to watch, but I don't know if they have all the pieces to win a championship, especially in a tough West and the East. They're top heavy out there. I don't think they're better than Brooklyn or the Bucks quite yet, and I just need to see more with them. Curry's on an amazing run right now, but I think eventually he slows down. I don't see this being sustained the whole year. I think they have a good record, and I think they have a really good regular season and are a fun team, but come to a playoff series when teams can just focus in on taking Curry out of it, and we don't know what we're getting from Clay when he comes back yet, I think that the Warriors could run into some trouble.
I disagree with that, though, because who are they beating in the West? Like, what teams in the West do you really think are pushing them to the Game 7 or beating them in general? I don't think the Clippers can keep up, especially without Kawhi. Teams like Memphis can't keep up. I mean, Phoenix, they got the championship run last year, but are they better than the Warriors?
I don't know if they're better than them, but I think that they can at least push them to 7, and those teams have the experience. And I don't know, I just see Curry slowing down. It's hard to say because he's played amazing and is playing like the MVP right now, but I think once you come into a playoff series, especially if Clay isn't 100%, teams can just focus in on Curry and take him out of the game.
See, I got to disagree one more time because that's the wrong guy to say to slow down. I mean, Steph's ability to break out of double teams and find the open man, turn into a playmaker. I just think if there was to be a collapse of the Warriors, I think it would be the other guys and not Steph.
Okay, I could see it also being the other guys because they're all playing above expectations right now, and I don't see them doing this the rest of the year. That's just why I'm holding off on the Warriors right now. I could see it changing in a couple weeks, but right now they're playing amazing. I don't know. I don't see it yet. I need to see it more. All these role players are having kind of career seasons. Like one guy that in particular that I wanted to give a shout out to is Gary Payton. He's coming in there. I feel like every single day I see a highlight dunk from Gary Payton, and Gary Payton II, not to be confused with his dad, the NBA Hall of Famer, but Gary Payton II every day is coming out there doing a highlight reel dunk, and Wiggins has been dunking. I don't know. Everybody's been making highlight reel plays on the Warriors, but all these role players, I don't see them doing it the rest of the year. And also I think that still Curry is significantly better than everyone else on this team. And once they figure that out, they're just going to try and take Curry out of the game, put like a Patrick Beverley type defender on him and just take him out of it.
Well, I don't think Pat Bev keeps up with Steph nowadays, but I get your point.
Not him particularly, but someone like him.
And he's also playing for what, the Timberwolves, or where is he at nowadays?
It was Timberwolves or Grizzlies. Yeah, he's very irrelevant these days.
I think it's the Timberwolves, but yeah, I mean, bringing up guys like Gary Payton II, Wiggins stepping up, I mean, it's just going to be a matter of if they can hold on to it, and I think they can. I do think this is the year where Wiggins needs to show something more, but kind of on the flip side, going to the whole other conference, so you don't have much faith in the Warriors, but what's your faith like in the defending champions, the Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, I think you kind of said it right there. They're the defending champions, so I think although they've struggled, they're going to figure it out. There's still no stopping Giannis. There's no formula to stopping Giannis. He's going to get his buckets any way he can. He's so strong and just physically gifted over any player that once it comes down to a playoff series, they're not taking him out of it. We saw the Nets last year. That's the team that they have to go through in the playoffs, and the Nets could barely stop Giannis. Giannis had one of his best playoff series ever there, and they put DeAndre Ayton on him in the finals. They couldn't stop him. I think Giannis finishes the year in the MVP conversation again, and all these role players are going to step up here for them. You got DiVincenzo coming back soon, and I like what I've seen out of Grayson Allen recently. I just think they're a deep team, and Giannis, I still think, is the best player in the NBA, and I think the championship runs through the Bucks. You got to beat the Bucks if you want to win it all.
Now, I hear your point. They have the championship DNA at this point, but they only won the championship because KD's foot was too big.
I don't know about that.
His foot was too big. If his shoe size was a size and a half smaller, he hits a 3-pointer instead of a 2-pointer, and they win that game in overtime.
I don't know if they win it in overtime. That's a hypothetical, and
No. Like,
go there.
Statistically, they win that game. Like, points-wise, they have one more point than the Bucks if he hits that shot. So they do win the game because it's at the buzzer.
It didn't happen now.
It wasn't overtime. It was regulation going into overtime. He hit that fadeaway to force overtime.
Oh, yeah, and it would have been a win if his foot was...
Yeah,
okay, I'm trying to remember.
If KD's foot was a little smaller, he probably would have been holding up that trophy.
Oh, that's so tough to say, though. That's such a hypothetical there, and it didn't happen, and KD didn't win the championship, so it's still the Bucks. And honestly, if, say, his foot was behind the line and he hits that shot, no team's beating the Nets. They're winning the championship easily. So just like no team beat the Bucks.
Yeah, and... I don't want to be too hypothetical, but going into this playoff run, I can imagine those teams matching up, whether it's the conference finals or meeting in the second round, and I don't see a way they stop Kevin Durant. The same way you see them not stopping Giannis, I think Kevin Durant just mows through whatever defender they put in front of them. He wants revenge for last year. I don't know. I can't see the Bucks going past the second round, especially if they're going to play a team like Brooklyn.
Well, a lot of it also depends on if Kyrie's here. If Kyrie's here, then maybe I'll change my opinion and say I'll go with the Nets winning this. And I think either of these teams, are going to be the championship teams right now. That's kind of my opinion. I think it's between those two. Whoever wins that series, which is likely the conference finals, is going to win it all. They're probably my top two picks to win the championship right now. unless things change. But like I said, Kyrie won't be there, and then that's just they really only have two people to worry about: Harden and Durant with the Bucks. Their role players aren't as good as the Bucks role players, and I think that Giannis is the best defender in the entire series. So hopefully he can. I'm not going to say stop Kevin Durant, but contain him enough, and I could see the Bucks winning that.
But the problem with that is if you put Giannis on KD, you're draining too much of Giannis's stamina.
Giannis is a superhuman. He
is, but that's why you put PJ Tucker on him, and obviously PJ Tucker's in Miami now, but that's why you put guys like PJ Tucker. You put guys like, I don't even know no one could guard Kevin Durant, but you throw another body in front of him so you save Giannis for the other side of the floor. But you're saying whoever wins that series likely is holding up the trophy at the end of the year, but you're still sleeping on the Warriors. I really think they could get red hot. I think once Clay comes back, it's going to be just lights out shooting for the rest of the year. They got another guy to rely on. They can't double team Curry because he's just going to throw the ball to Dre or Clay. And I don't know. I got my Warriors going pretty quick.
I don't have it, but I kind of hope to see it because I miss the old Warriors. It feels like it's been so many years since we saw the dominant Warriors, like the 73-9 team, and I hope that when Clay comes back, they can play that way. Because by no means am I rooting against the Warriors. I'm just sharing my opinion.
Yeah,
here.
no, I mean, I get it.
I love the Warriors.
I do think you're optimistic of them, but at the same time, you're trying to be realistic.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense. What about jump into a different topic here? What about Anthony Edwards putting up 48 career high? They lost the game, but Ant-Man looked crazy.
Well, this is just. It was against the Warriors there, so...
Yeah, of course, the 9-1 Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, they can't stop a 21-year-old kid. Or actually, he's not even 21. He's the same exact age as me, I know. He turns 21 in August, so he's young. He's very young, and he drops 48 on the Warriors. No, I'm not saying that is the Warriors' fault there. Anthony Edwards is a great player, and...
He had a hot hand, too.
He did.
He was cashing out.
I feel like he can get very hot sometimes shooting. He's kind of a streakiest shooter at this point in his career, and he can have these games where he just is on fire shooting, and he'll get 20 points just off his athleticism alone.
That team just makes me so frustrated. That's my least favorite team in basketball, the Timberwolves. And I want them to do well, but I get so frustrated that they can't. They bring in guys like D'Lo, and they're like, all right, cool. We got another guy besides Cat. They draft Ant-Man. Ant-Man comes in, he's balling. And they're like, all right, we got another piece by Cat. And then they still are terrible. I just don't know what else it's going to take for the Timberwolves to take another jump.
And they're going to get another high pick this year, too. And I don't know if that high pick is going to translate into anything. It's just going to be another player there. So it's weird. I don't like D'Lo in Minnesota. I think they need to trade him.
He's fallen off pretty bad.
I just don't like watching him play anymore. I haven't since he left the Nets.
He's a weird player. He's 6'5", but he can't jump. He can't defend.
That's very true.
It's just weird. I feel like he should be dunking the basketball. He should be
I
more
can't think of many
than
times I've seen him dunk the ball.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. On a fast break, I guess, but...
Yeah, he's not very athletic, and...
I'm not saying he's got to be a Russell Westbrook, but the athleticism's got to show on defense as well, and it just doesn't.
I feel like watching the games, too, with D'Lo... It seems like he does nothing, and then you look at the box score, and it's he got 17 points, and it's just a boring 17 at this point.
And it just never matters.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
He drops 17 in a loss, then they win, and he has 3. It's just so weird to me.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of him. I know you're not a fan of Cat, really, either.
It's kind of hard for me to say I'm not a fan of Cat, because I honestly do like watching him play. It's just the matter of, what he said to the media the other day. He's like, yeah, being here in Minnesota, I know a 3-game losing streak can turn into 15 or 20 games. It's just shut up, Cat. Just
that's
play.
not the attitude you should have.
Yeah, go play, go try to win, and don't let it slip to 15, 20 games. Because, you think of other guys like Jokic and Embiid who are similar caliber players. They would never say that in their city, in their place they play. That's just so, bad to hear as a fan. It's bad to hear as especially a Cat fan, because you're just like, all right, well, I guess we're going to lose 15 straight, and Cat's not going to do anything about it.
Well, this actually, you said Embiid and Jokic's name, and that just kind of strung something with me here. And I feel like part of the problem is Cat here with the Timberwolves, because if you put Embiid, say you switch their roles, you switch their teams they're on, you put Embiid on the Timberwolves and Cat on the Sixers, I feel like the Timberwolves would be a playoff team with Embiid instead of Cat. For some reason, I say it because Anthony Edwards is pretty much better than any player on the Sixers other than Embiid, I'd have to say. You could maybe argue Tobias, but they're like same tier, if not, probably Anthony Edwards is better.
Yeah, at this point, Ant-Man.
So I don't know. It just seems like Cat's basketball his skills don't translate to winning.
Yeah, it's a lot of empty stats, kind of like the backup center in Philly, Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
A lot of empty stats. But
yeah, it kind of is like a Drummond thing.
there's no doubt that Cat's skilled. I think he's just got to do more to impact winning instead of the stat sheet.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, and then another center we wanted to jump into here. There's this big controversy going on this week. Nikola Jokic and one of the Morris brothers. Which one was it?
Markieff.
Markieff
Right?
Morris.
It's Markieff.
I'll double check
They're
in
twins.
a second.
It's
Yeah.
hard. I'm about to look it up.
So, Nikola Jokic and we'll say Markieff for now, Morris, got into a fight this week. And basically what happened was Markieff stuck out I think he stuck out his shoulder.
Markieff.
Okay, it was Markieff.
Morris. Google confirmed it.
He stuck out his shoulder and Jokic, I think they ran into each other, right? And then Jokic just kind of out of nowhere came out, elbowed him to the back. Morris had his back facing the complete opposite way, and he came ramming into him and knocked him out, and Morris ended up getting pretty hurt there. So this was just like a huge debate going on. Was Jokic in the wrong here? And I guess, what do you think, Joe?
I'm all for what Jokic did. I think Markieff plays this dangerous game where he's like, I'm going to be the bad guy every single night. Similar to PJ Tucker, actually. But he runs up. You said they kind of collided, but, watching the replay a couple of times, you really see Markieff extend his arm and really go for, the rib cage of Jokic. And Jokic, being the guy he isn't having that. Runs up and he hits him. His back was turned. That's what a lot of people have the problem with, is he hit him with his back turned. But at the same time, Markieff does this every night to everyone. Someone's bound to flip out, and it was just happened to be the reigning MVP.
So I'm going to go the opposite here. I don't think that Jokic is in the right at all here. I think that you're kind of wrong with that. Jokic, as you said, Morris had his back turned to him. That's a dirty play, and he needs to control his anger out there on the court. I'm surprised he only got a 1-game suspension, because he seriously could have hurt Markieff Morris there. He went full into him, and we saw stuff like he hurt his neck on it, got whiplash from that scuffle. He really hurt Morris there. He's bigger than him, and he comes charging at him while he has his back turned, and I think that's a bit of a coward move to do.
I don't wish injury on anyone. I'm disappointed that Markieff is hurt, but at the same time, it's part of the game. You're going to play a little dirty. You're going to get played dirty back. It's just the name of the game, and that's something that Markieff and his brother Marcus, kind of play with. They have that chip where they're just like, I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm not going to let anyone else be the bad guy but me. And, you're bound to get fought back sometimes.
Yeah, I guess that is what happens, but in this specific circumstance, I'd have to go with Jokic went way too far here.
Okay. I mean, that's understandable. I do hear what you're saying. I don't agree with it. I can't agree with it because there's been many times in Markieff's career where he's done something crazy to someone. His former teammate, Kelly Olynyk, last year they had a scuffle, and he kind of did the same thing. He elbowed him in his left rib cage, and it really hurt Kelly Olynyk, and he got mad, and they duked it out a little bit on the court, a lot of pushing and shoving. But it's the same thing that happened with Jokic. Jokic just is 50 pounds heavier than Kelly Olynyk and just hit him while his back was turned. But at the same time, when you play that game, I think you're bound to get fought back a little bit.
Yeah, so that pretty much recaps all the main points from this week so far. There's a lot of games happening, a lot of other stuff that we'll cover throughout. When we come back from our break, we are going to go over our redraft for the 2018 NBA draft.
Welcome back to 3 over 2. I'm Joe Fortunato, and as always, I'm here with Chris Grieve. So we just got done our weekly recap before the break. Now we're going to jump into the 2018 draft redraft. So for those who are unfamiliar with how redrafts work, it's really just taking the player that should have been taken at a certain slot. And obviously, in the moment, teams are bound to make picks that may not pan out to be the best. We understand that. We're not saying that these teams are in the wrong for all these picks, but we're just saying our opinions for who should have been taken. And with our opinions, we're taking into consideration that these players need to fit on each team. So we'll just jump straight into it. You'll get the memo as we go. But the first pick in real life went to the Phoenix Suns, and they chose the center DeAndre Ayton out of Arizona, who had a lot of hype. He was probably the right pick for the number 1 pick at the time. But who would you take in the first pick? Are you still taking Ayton?
No, I can't still take Ayton, and I think Ayton was a great fit in Phoenix, and he's been a good player there, and by no means is he a bust or anything. He's been a very solid player with the Suns, but I think they made the wrong pick here because the best player in this draft by a mile and a generational talent is Luka Doncic. They should have took him at 1, and I'm going with Phoenix taking Luka.
Yeah, I'm also going with the first pick. Phoenix is taking Luka, and you flash back trying to think of the team in 2018 that the Suns had. They obviously weren't good. They ended up with the first pick. But regardless of who's on that roster, you got to take Luka just because he is that generational guy. If Phoenix could see into the future, they obviously would have taken Luka. I think that's the obvious pick here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the Suns then, I think pretty much the only player they still have on their team that they had while drafting in 2018 was Devin Booker. So you get Devin Booker and Luka, that's all you need for a good team for years to come. You could fill out in the rest with whatever.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on to the second pick in the draft, it went to Sacramento, and Sacramento took Marvin Bagley III out of Duke. He was a power forward. He's been struggling in real life, to say the least. He's not in their current rotation. He's looking to get out of Sacramento. So if Sacramento knew all of this, I think they would have been taking Trey Young with this pick, the point guard out of Oklahoma. Trey Young, he's been insane. He's showing flashes of Steph Curry, and he's living up to all the hype that he's gotten since high school.
See, I'm going Trey Young here, and I think that is the best pick because it's the second best player in this draft, and he's pretty much between him and Luka. Those are by far the 2 best players in this draft, and they're pretty much superstars, you can call them. They took Marvin Bagley here, I think, only because they took Jaron Fox the year before. So it'd be interesting to see if they did this, if this redraft actually happened, and if they took Trey Young at 2, how they would fit him in with De'Aaron Fox. And I think it would have caused a bit of issues, but that being said, Trey Young's the next best player in this draft. I'd rather figure it out and just take the talent, take the best player available.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about fit, that kind of made the third pick complicated for me because the guy I said should have been 3 could have went 2. So in real life, the Atlanta Hawks took Luka Doncic with the 3rd pick in the draft. He was obviously traded to Dallas for Trey Young. But, that's kind of the right pick. But anyway, in our redraft, I had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going number 3 to the Hawks. I wanted to put him in Sacramento only because of that De'Aaron Fox backcourt. But I went with Trey 2nd because of his talent, and I went Shai 3rd because I think Shai could finish and fit in with any team.
Yeah, I ended up doing the same exact thing as you, and I went Shai going to Atlanta. Shai would have been a better fit, I think, with Fox in the same backcourt because Shai can play the 2, but just Trey Young's a better player, and I had to put, say Trey Young's off the board here and Atlanta's sitting at 3. If Luka and Trey Young are off the board. They have to take Shea Gilgeous here. They needed a point guard. He ends up being their point guard for the future, and he'd still have a really good career with Atlanta. Probably not as good as Trey Young, but he's still going to be really good with Atlanta there.
Yeah, I agree. Heading over to the fourth pick, in real life, the Memphis Grizzlies selected Jaron Jackson Jr. out of Michigan State. Jaron Jackson's been pretty good so far in his career. I do think he's one of the best talents in this draft. He hasn't really been able to showcase much, only because he's been off the court with injuries. Who'd you take here for Memphis?
So the former number one pick in the actual draft was DeAndre Ayton, and I think talent-wise, he's probably the fourth best player in this class, and now all of a sudden he's fallen to the fourth spot. In this position, the Grizzlies took Jaron Jackson because Ayton was gone already. So now they have the chance to take Ayton right here. So I think they take Ayton, who's just an upgrade from Jaron Jackson. And he ends up fitting there. And I don't know. I think he ends up being a better pick than Jaron Jackson.
Yeah, I like that selection. I matched it. Same thing. I think our next couple selections are going to be different. But the first four, I think, are pretty defined as the best four in the draft, at least where they stand right now. They got some guys that are coming up in this draft that are playing really well right now. It'll be interesting to see in a couple of years if they're better than that top four, but I think that top four is pretty solid. Going to the fifth pick, we had Dallas selecting Trey Young out of Oklahoma, who was traded for Luka Doncic later in that draft. And I mean, that would have been a good pick for Dallas in real life. If you keep Trey or Luka, I mean, you're going to be successful. But I think Dallas won this draft by taking Luka Doncic. So in the redraft, the fifth pick, I have Colin Sexton going to Dallas. I think Colin Sexton's a great scorer. He went 8th to Cleveland in real life. So it's not too far off. But I do think Colin Sexton's got a lot of potential. I'd like to see him shoot the ball better in real life, but at the same time, I mean, he can just score at will, and I think that's something that would have been nice for Dallas to have in 2018.
So I went a different route here, and I don't think that they should have took Colin Sexton. As you said, Colin Sexton's a great scorer. That's it, though. He doesn't bring that much more.
That is it. You're pretty right.
That's it with Colin Sexton, and I think a lot of people will notice that coming out of the draft, too. That's why he went at 8 instead of 5. So I went Michael Porter Jr. here to the Mavericks. Now, granted, he's having a terrible season so far. He just got paid a max and been a huge disappointment this year. But you look at the numbers for Michael Porter Jr. last year, he averaged 17 points a game, was shooting over 50%. He was very good, and it seemed like he was going to grow, but there's been some setbacks this year. I don't think he's playing fully healthy this season so far. And I think Michael Porter Jr., he's still so young. This is only a 2018 redraft. A lot of these players are, in like the 22 or not 22, probably like 23, 24 age range.
Yeah, some even younger.
So they're all still developing still. And I think Michael Porter Jr., out of all the people still available, has the most potential here. The Mavericks they could have took anyone. I think they were taking the best player available. I think just Michael Porter Jr. has so much potential, and we saw it last year with the Nuggets, how good he can be. I think once he's fully healthy, and I don't think he's playing healthy this year, he can be a star and maybe even an all-star one day.
Yeah, I like that pick. I do have, a little spoiler alert, I do have Michael Porter on here, but he's not as high as where you have him. But anyway, moving on, we're on to the sixth pick. The Orlando Magic in real life selected Mo Bamba here out of Texas. Mo Bamba had a lot of hype. He, crazy wingspan, crazy blocks per game numbers. He was probably the right pick to select at the time at 6. I don't think that was a terrible pick by Orlando. They were looking for a defensive anchor center. They took Mo Bamba, but in my opinion, looking back on it, with the 6th pick, I have Orlando taking Jaron Jackson Jr. here. We spoke pretty briefly about Jaron Jackson. He was also at Michigan State. He has been able to showcase that he's very talented in real life, but unfortunately, his numbers aren't that, you got to take his numbers not too seriously, only because he's been hurt for so long and he keeps getting injured. So if he can stay healthy, I think Jaron is the sixth best player in this draft, and I think he would be a good fit running that the front court with Vucevic back in 2018 in Orlando.
Yeah, and I think Jaren Jackson also can play the four, as you said, or as you said, he can run on the same court as Vucevic. So I think that would kind of work, be a better fit than Mo Bamba. One of the problems with why Mo Bamba never developed is because they drafted him and he sat behind Vucevic for so long.
He never played.
They never played. He
He
started playing after they traded Vucevic last year, which was 3 years into his career, and now he's playing this year. But then they have Wendell Carter out there they're just not giving him the full-time center role and letting him develop when he's a guy that had a lot of potential. And I think if Mo Bamba went somewhere else, he would have been a great fit. Anyways, I'm getting off track. My pick here was Colin Sexton, and kind of for what I just said there, I wanted to take Jaren Jackson Jr. because I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a better player than Colin Sexton, but they had Vucevic still. I think the Mavericks should have traded Vucevic, the Magic should have traded Vucevic well before they did last season. They should have traded him years ago.
Yeah.
But
they kind of wasted his career there.
They did. He had such a good career, and they ended up getting a good haul back for him, but
yeah.
What was it all for? What was he just doing there? He was just putting up numbers on a team that wasn't good.
He was the only player in the league that averaged 20 plus points per game and still wasn't a household name. People wouldn't know who he was.
Oh, I completely agree with that. Yeah, he's one of those players that just kind of gets forgotten about when he was in Orlando. So I think that they needed to bring a fun player in and someone that can just score the ball, someone that plays a different position than him, and that's why I went Sexton there. Although I think Jaren Jackson's a better player, I just think Sexton was the better fit at the time. I didn't like them drafting a big man at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that completely, and looking at fits, that is a good way to look at it. Moving on here, we got the 7th pick in the draft. It's the Chicago Bulls. They took a guy who we just mentioned. They took Wendell Carter Jr. out of Duke here. He was the second Duke guy to go in this draft in the top 10. His teammate was Marvin Bagley. But Wendell Carter, he was good at Duke. He wasn't, outstanding, though. And I didn't really understand this pick at the time. I honestly thought Chicago was going to take Sexton in real life. I wonder how that would have worked out. Back in 2018, Chicago didn't have much really going for them. But at the end of the day, they took Wendell Carter Jr., and in my redraft, I have them taking Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges is someone who's made an appearance, I think, every single episode on this show.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, he works his way in here. Miles Bridges is balling this year. We've said it 100 times. I'm just going to leave it at that. So who did you take?
So I didn't draft Jaren Jackson Jr. yet. So right here, I went with Jaren Jackson Jr. I think the Miles Bridges pick makes sense too. At this time, Chicago just needed anything. And for me, when I was doing this redraft, I think Jaren Jackson fell so much here that they needed to draft him there. And he would end up being a good fit in Chicago, I think. And hopefully not get as hurt as he did in real life.
Yeah, that's a pretty good pick. Chicago was kind of looking for anything, like you said. The only reason I wouldn't agree with that is because I believe they had Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah,
right
he was drafted the year before. Although Lauri Markkanen, as we're seeing this year, can play small forward. Maybe he's a point guard or something. He can just play anywhere. So if I were to do it, I would put Jaren Jackson at center and then Markkanen at power forward. It'd be a tall team. I kind of like it. I don't know. Then they'd need to draft a guard the next year, but it's all hypothetical, I guess.
Yeah. Moving on to the 8th pick in real life, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They select Colin Sexton here from Alabama. Colin Sexton was such an entertaining point guard to watch in college. That dude plays with so much aggression and just passion, and you could just tell he kind of reminds me of the Russell Westbrook intensity. But, obviously he doesn't perform as well as
way
Russ.
Less athleticism, but same intensity.
I don't know. Colin Sexton is athletic. I wouldn't say it's, drastic.
Okay, yeah.
Russ just makes it look good because he throws it down hard. But, little off topic. So So yeah, Cleveland takes Colin Sexton. My redraft, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers taking Michael Porter Jr. here. Seeing his performance this year really had an impact on my decision in this redraft. Because if we would have done this a year ago, when he was putting up that 17 points a game and stuff, I probably would have had him 5th, maybe 6th, maybe even over 8 in that 4. But at the end of the day, Michael Porter Jr. is a good player. He's 6'10", and somehow he plays shooting guard for Denver sometimes. But he can shoot the ball lights out when he's hot. I think he's going to get hot in real life at some point. But I think Cleveland would have taken him here.
Yeah, I could see them taking him here if he was still here. But for me, he was already drafted early.
He was off the board early for you.
Yeah, he was off the board early for me. I'm kind of a fan of Michael Porter Jr., and I don't want to overreact too much to this year's struggles. So I had him going way before, but I'm going to take someone that you already selected, and that's Miles Bridges, our favorite guy on the show.
Good pick.
Our weekly guest on the show, Miles Bridges, goes 8 here, and I think it was a tough debate for me between him and the other Bridges, Mikal Bridges, but I think everything before this year, Mikal Bridges was a better player, and then all of a sudden Miles Bridges this year just takes that leap, and I think Miles Bridges is good enough, is just been playing so good this year that he's now ahead of Mikal Bridges and goes to Cleveland here, where Cleveland, they don't really have much either. Honestly, I'm trying to think of players on their team then. I think it's only Kevin Love here that was still with them. So Bridges goes here, and he can end up kind of being like their LeBron.
Their LeBron. That's tough shoes to fill.
And probably nowhere close. But
do you remember when Sexton was drafted and they asked him, they were like, LeBron might be on his way to a different team. What can you do to influence him to stay in Cleveland? And then they just put Sexton on the spot. Sexton's like, we're going to ball out, man. Me and you are going to go win a championship.
Then he went to the Lakers.
Then he went to the Lakers like not even a day later.
All right, so in this redraft, Miles Bridges tells LeBron to stay, and then LeBron stays. Miles Bridges handles the question much better, and LeBron never goes to the Lakers.
Yeah, Miles Bridges is more convincing. He averages like 30 a night, and they win a ring.
So maybe we should have drafted a player based on how convincing they are here.
Yeah, honestly. All right, so the 9th pick in real life went to the New York Knicks, and they selected Kevin Knox out of Kentucky. Kevin Knox was one of those guys that had a bunch of hype out of high school. He's just mad athletic. I really don't know what Kevin Knox is doing nowadays.
Riding the bench.
Yeah, I think he's just riding the bench in New York. But they select Kevin Knox. My selection would have been Mikal Bridges here, which isn't too far off of where he went in real life. He went 10th in real life to Philadelphia. We're going to get to that in a minute. But 9th pick, Knicks take Mikal Bridges. They get a 3-and-D guy to start to help the Knicks to try and figure something out here. At the time, Knicks weren't very good, and a guy like this can help them take, I guess, some sort of leap.
Yeah, so we're finally back to picking the same people. I went Mikal Bridges here also. The Knicks just kind of also needed anything here. Best player available, good 3-and-D, as you said. And I think that he would fit with the Knicks and that culture there. I think he's just a good role player anywhere he goes. You could just plug him in anywhere. You don't need that much around him, and he'll produce anywhere. So I think him going to the Knicks would be a great pick, and he would still be on the team to this day, and it would actually be so much better than Kevin Knox. He'd probably be like a consistent either starter or just in that rotation with them. And if they had Mikal Bridges, they'd be significantly better right now.
Well, imagine their defense. I mean, they already have arguably the best defense in the NBA right now.
Oh, it'd be such a good fit.
Yeah. I mean, out of all the selections here, I mean, obviously not counting Luka and Trey Young because of their impact, I think the most sense is Mikal Bridges 9th to the Knicks.
And this is one that they easily could have done because he was the next pick in the draft. They chose Kevin Knox over him. They could have easily picked Mikal Bridges instead of him, and that would have just been such a great decision for them and work out so much better.
The Knicks have just been taking guys who could jump recently, with Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox. I mean, it just seems like they love the athletes. And when you play at the Garden, I guess you want the guys that are going to jump out the gym and stuff.
I think I kind of fall into the fault of this, of buying into the hype of those players too. And then it's like they always get so hyped up because they're going to the Knicks. I remember one of my worst takes ever. I said Kevin Knox is going to win Rookie of the Year when he went to the Knicks, and gosh, he was awful. And then I also thought I was about to say Obi Toppin's going to win Rookie of the Year too.
I had Obi. I just thought Obi was going to have a much bigger opportunity than what he was given. But my worst Rookie of the Year take of all time was Mario Hezonja winning Rookie of the Year. That was a bad one. I was just like, this guy's cool. He was nice overseas. Might as well take him.
And that sometimes with the overseas players, you really have no clue what you're going to get. You either get Mario Hezonja or you get Luka.
That's a very good point. So the final pick that we redrafted, we were doing the top 10 here. The final pick went to the Philadelphia 76ers. And it pains me to say that they took Mikal Bridges in real life, but later traded him for Zaire Smith and a future second-round pick. Zaire Smith, for anyone wondering, played 13 games in his NBA career and is no longer in the NBA. So that kind of summarized the Sixers draft that year. Anyway, Mikal Bridges taken at 10 in real life. I have Kevin Huerter going 10 in real life to Philly. I'm thinking about the team in 2018. We got guys like Ben just starting to play. We got, I guess, Markelle Fultz kind of playing. And then we got Joel obviously down low. I think Kevin Huerter running the 2 would have been a pretty good fit. It's interesting what we would have done because, honestly, we started Ben at the small forward to begin his career. So I wonder if Ben would have stayed a 3 or 4 if we had, Markelle obviously develop and Kevin Huerter from that 2 role.
Yeah, that's a good pick there. I didn't go Kevin Huerter, and this was a hard range for me.
This was
pick
really
was the
hard.
Hardest pick because I feel like I'll just throw the names out there that I was considering.
That's what I was about to do. So.
Jaylen Brunson, I'd say, is probably the best out of all these players in this range, but it's hard to. He didn't fit in Philly. I didn't go Jaylen Brunson because he doesn't fit with all the guards they have. DiVincenzo,
another Nova guy.
DiVincenzo was my pick for the Sixers here.
Okay, all right.
I just think because if you're going between him and Huerter, who were like the same player type, I'd have to go DiVincenzo over Kevin Huerter because, I mean, he's not as good of a shooter, but which I guess you could say they're close, but slightly less of a shooter. Also brings more on defense, more athletic, and he's local, so I think he would fit in Philly better. I just think because of that was my tiebreaker there.
It's kind of crazy that the 3 players you were debating were all Villanova guys, too.
Yeah.
Bridges, Brunson, and DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
That was such a good draft for Villanova. They made out really well. They had 4 drafted. It's got to be the most in program history for sure.
It was right after the championship, too.
Yeah. Just some other names in this draft. There was a lot of good second-round picks that got drafted in this draft.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That I just want to throw out there and give some credit to. For one, Jaylen Brunson was the 33rd pick in the draft, which is the 3rd pick of the second round. In hindsight, he probably would have been a lottery pick. You got guys like Shake Milton going 54th and stepping up and being pretty good.
Yeah. You
got other guys like Bruce Brown, who's playing a decent role on a championship contending team. He went 42nd to Detroit. You got Javon Carter, won a championship. His role wasn't too significant, but you got Robert Williams and Landry Shamet going back-to-back picks. Both pretty good role players. At the end of the day, this really was a decent draft. And it's turning out to have maybe 2 or 3 Hall of Famers, which is always a W when it comes to drafts.
Yeah, I think guaranteed 2.
Guaranteed 2.
Maybe Shea gets there.
I think maybe Shea. I think Ayton needs to take a crazy leap. But Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, if he can string together a couple championships somewhere, he could probably be in.
Yeah, I could see that with him. Also, I wasn't sure if you said this name, but was Devontae Graham in this draft too? I thought he was a second-round pick.
He was. He was the 4th pick in the second round. I skipped right over him. He was following Jaylen Brunson.
So this draft had a really good second round.
And also,
crazy.
Miles Bridges being in it, automatic W.
Yeah, our favorite player.
Our favorite player somehow. It went from Jayshawn Tate to Miles Bridges. Yeah. If you know, you know.
So, yeah, I think this is a good draft, and I think pretty much we set up most of the teams better. Of course, some teams like the Mavericks, for example. Now they don't get Luka, but
Yeah, and yeah, in real life the Mavericks won, but in real life the Mavericks won, but in this draft Phoenix wins getting Luka. It doesn't even matter what else happens, but
easily.
it's so easy to sit here and do this. It's so easy for us to just sit on our butts talking to a mic and say, "Oh, yeah, I would have taken this person there." Obviously, in the moment, you don't have all this information, so we're not, calling any of these organizations crazy for their picks. It's not like there was an Anthony Bennett pick here, where that's a bust from the moment they're drafted, but this draft was fun. This draft was entertaining. They got a lot of good players that I like on this draft, and it was pretty fun redrafting them.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this redraft, and let us know if you guys think that this is something you want to see in the future. There's many years we can do this for, and we can just kind of throw it into our show at any point. If we don't have anything else to talk about, we'll do a redraft here. We'll pick a different year. So let us know any years you want to see or other stuff, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And last couple minutes here, we're just going to talk about games that are supposed to happen this week that we can imagine being very entertaining. I'll start it off. We got the Bucks playing the Celtics tonight. Two teams, disappointing starts. They have some stars that need to step up, like Jaylen Brown needs to take a step. Jason Tatum needs to find his shot. He's been missing his shot the whole season. And then they're going up against the defending champs with the Milwaukee Bucks. What are you excited for about this game?
I'm just excited because I feel like both teams are frustrated and feel like they need to win, so they're going to kind of go all out here. And I feel like whenever these two teams play, it's a good game. It always goes to the wire. There's always like a big shot or something that happens. So I think that I just like the matchup of it, especially Tatum versus Giannis. That'll be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, it's always fun seeing teams that realize they need to pick it up play each other, because they're both looking to grab a top 5 seed in the East. They don't want to, or top 4 seed rather, because no one wants to play without home court advantage in that first round. But that's going to be a fun game. I'd like to see Tatum figure out what he's doing a little bit. He's just been a little disappointing to start this year. Moving on, game of the day that I'm most excited for. It's a West Coast game. We got the Bulls at the Warriors. We just talked about how red hot the Warriors are and how they've been able to take down some good teams like the Lakers. And now they're matching up against the Bulls, who are also red hot. They have MVP, caliber player with DeMar DeRozan. And he's matching up against maybe the MVP of the season, Steph Curry. So that's going to be a fun game. Two teams that are just going to go at it, and I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I think I'm the most excited about that game, too. It's also teams that kind of have a new identity this year. They're teams that their expectations weren't as good as they're playing. I don't think people thought the Warriors would be this good, and I also don't think people thought the Bulls would be this good, even with all the signings they had.
The Bulls got a lot of hype.
They got a lot of hype.
Including from us.
But did like the average fan expect them to be this good, though? I don't know.
I think so.
Okay, so maybe.
I think so. Only because people love Lonzo Ball. People appreciate DeMar DeRozan. Maybe not appreciate as much as they should, but they do.
He's still underrated.
And you know what's the most underrated thing of the season that we probably should have spoke about? It's just the Wizards being on top of the East.
Yeah, I did want to talk about
We're 11 games in. So, like, if they were top of the East 5 games in, I would just be like, okay, like, whatever. But 11 games in is a pretty good sample size to judge how good that team is.
I think they're just doing a good job there. They clearly won this Westbrook deal, I think.
Oh, my God, yeah.
They were somehow able to unload him and get all this back.
Yeah. They dumped that big contract. First of all, they dumped Wall's contract for Westbrook, and then they dumped Westbrook's contract for 3 role players that are helping them be 8-3.
Yeah.
I mean, they've made some good moves.
No, they definitely have made some good moves, and I just like how all those players, they were all the players that were with the Lakers and underperformed, and being in LA, the big market, they got so much slander. Kuzma got so much slander, and Montrezl Harrell got so much slander.
They were saying Shanghai Sharks the whole time. Like, yeah, every time they post on Instagram, they'll be like, "Oh, you're going to Shanghai? You're going to Shanghai?" Like, at the end of the day, these guys are ballers, and they're going out there and they're doing their thing. And Wes Unseld Jr. has done a great job taking over from Scott Brooks. I got a couple of friends that are Wizards fans that absolutely hate Scott Brooks.
Yeah, I think it's been a great coaching story with them and just letting these players feel comfortable here. I'm so impressed with Kyle Kuzma, and Kuzma was always a guy, he's up and down with me. I loved him as a rookie coming out of the draft. Then I kind of hated him once LeBron came there. And he kind of got like this Ben Simmons type attitude toward him in LA, where he just thought he was a bigger star than he was and was trying to be more of a celebrity than a basketball player. And then he kind of knocked that act off as soon as he went to the Wizards, and he's just going out there and playing basketball, like just scoring a lot of points, having his best career year by far. And now I can say, like, Kyle Kuzma is a really good player.
Yeah, I mean, Kuzma has been balling, and I'm sitting here looking at the standings. The Warriors won, so they're 10-1.
Oh, wow.
10-1. That's crazy. And they could really be 11-0. They only lost that game by a couple of points. Yeah, Wizards have been absolutely great. They've stepped up without, Beal's been out a couple of these games, and they've won without him, which is more impressive looking at the fact that they have basically a new team. They added Dinwiddie, Harrell, Kuzma, KCP, and Wes Unseld Jr. being the head coach. And with a rookie coach, they're just turning this thing around. They're impressive. But a team that's not impressive, I guess two teams, is the bottom of the West. We have the Rockets sitting at 1-10, and then somehow there's a team worse than that, the Pelicans, who are 1-11.
Yeah, I don't like those teams at all.
It's
Rockets
terrible.
Is expected with, I feel like.
Yeah.
But the Pelicans, I know they don't have Zion, but they got to do more.
Yeah, you got to win more than one game, even with Jalen Green. Like, I understand you're just letting Jalen Green do whatever he wants. Like, okay, like I get that, but you got to win more than one game. Maybe take a little back from Jalen Green and see if someone else can step up. I don't know what they can do. They probably have the worst roster in the league, maybe behind the Pistons. It's kind of, you can kind of argue that, but yeah, I mean, they're god awful. I don't know what can save the Rockets at this point.
Yeah, I think that roster is just terrible. As you said, it's a lot of young players too. It's one of the youngest in the league.
They probably want to be bad.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's probably, trust the process time for Houston.
Which might be the best scenario for them. Go out there, maybe get like Chet Holmgren in the draft, pair him with Jalen Green, and
or
a good team.
Pablo Banchero.
Yeah, get one.
He had a good debut for Duke. I think he's the consensus number one right now. But yeah, I think the moment James Harden walked out of the door in Houston,
it's been full rebuild.
Yeah, we all kind of knew what was coming, and they were like, "Oh, well, we got John Wall now," and it's just kind of like, nah.
Yeah,
maybe 2017 John Wall.
One thing I'm disappointed with them though, and I don't really think he might not have as much of a future in Houston as many projected, but Kevin Porter Jr. has been a disappointment there.
Yeah,
he's having a bad year right now. I don't know. I'm not a fan of him anymore. I've kind of checked out with how he's playing because he should be a lot better there.
He was almost my most improved pick. It was between him and Jordan Poole, and I went Jordan Poole.
I went Kevin Porter, so
there it was.
There we go. And I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm so disappointed in him because he just hasn't done anything.
I should have went with my gut for MVP and said Curry, just because with me being a big Curry fan. But we both went Luka, and that's also been kind of disappointing so far.
Yeah, so I definitely want to do an episode in the future where we go back and look at all of those picks we made for the awards and see how they panned out because, some of them might be good, other ones I think we missed on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been a great episode. We went over a lot. Do you have anything else you want to add before we skip out of here?
No, that's pretty much all. It's been a good episode, and let us know if you like the redrafts. I think that was a very fun concept we did today. Yeah,
any feedback on any portion of the episode is always appreciated. We get some texts from people after the show that really help us out. It's been a great episode. It's been really fun redrafting. That's something we enjoy. Thank you everyone for listening. We're gonna have it up on YouTube here in about an hour or two, and this has been the 3 over 2.